Hey, welcome back to BarryTsGarage. Thanks for coming along. Behind me is a 1937 Buick. Those of you who've been with us for a while, you've seen a few videos on it, running and driving, but that's been actually maybe a couple of years ago. You haven't seen it recently because there have been some problems, and I'm going to have JB explain what's going on. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any interest in original videos, they're pretty cool. I'll try to put a link in the description so you can have a look at that. So here we go, 1937 Buick Coupe, convertible coupe. Got a few issues, we'll explain. Okay, I'm gonna say this is one of your favorite cars. Let's start with, what car is this?
This is a 1937 Buick Century convertible coupe. They only made a few hundred of them. This car has virtually no miles on it ever. It was bought new in 37. And put in a warehouse, and it lived there for 30 or 40 years. Never came out. A friend of mine bought it in Los Angeles. I pestered him until he finally agreed to sell it, and I bought it from him. Cute story on that. When I bought it from him, he didn't give it to me.
No.
He made me pay for it, even though we were friends, which is, the way that should happen anyway. So it was a fair amount of money in those days, especially. And the guy's name is Nick, tremendously nice guy. Anyway, he said, when we were loading the car on the trailer, he said, you don't look happy. I mean, you've been pestering me for this car for 5 years. I finally sell it to you, and now you look like somebody kicked you in the stomach. What's the problem here?
Yeah.
I said, well, Nick, I said, I'm not used to paying a lot of money for cars. This is, for me, this is a great deal of money.
Yeah.
He said, oh, you'll just stroke a little harder. And I said, well, Nick, you're probably right. Nick was right. If you have a goal and you have something to work toward and it's worthy, this car was languishing. It wasn't getting finished. I knew it didn't have a lot of miles on it. I knew it was completely rust-free. And I thought, you see an opportunity and sometimes you just got to go for it and do it. It was painful, but here we are 40 years later, and we're still friends. So.
You've had this car for 40 years?
40 years, yeah.
Wow.
And it's a keeper. It's a family member. We have a group of cars that we have identified as the core group and the family members, the way we call it. It's not a lot of them, but it's got to be something that is easily maintained, that we can take care of. And the next generation's got to be able to do the same thing. If you hand off a car to your son or daughter, and you don't do it in such a way that they can take care of it, you're making it difficult for the car and for your person who inherits it. So it's really good to upgrade some stuff, and that's what we've done with this car.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, that's good. So I know, since this is one of your favorites, it kind of surprises me in a way that you haven't been driving it in quite a while.
Yeah, well, there've been other, the Zephyrs have been how would I say this, influencing my decision.
Yeah.
But the Buick, is upset.
Okay.
Clearly that he's not getting driven. So we want to take it home from the shop, but every time we do that, if we don't get it up to speed and get the issues that it has fixed, then it just languishes at my house.
Yeah.
We don't want that to happen. We want to go there, and as soon as fall comes around, we can drive it around. Now, it's Arizona, it's 115. No, we're not going to
drive it. No.
Going to wait for October, and then we can drive it for about 3 or 4 or 5 months.
Right.
But in the meantime, this is its opportunity to get these things remedied. So we did a number of things that would help. The first that you notice is that we have a drain plug in the gas tank, and if you notice, this is not standard issue. This is a tank out of, for instance, like a 37 Ford. Apologies to the GM group for putting a Ford part in there, but a company called Tanks manufactures a wide variety of sizes of tanks. So you just go into their catalog and you look up what's physically, length, width, and depth. And it turned out that this one, I think, is a 37 Ford, and this coincidentally is a 37 Buick. But that's only a coincidence. So it fit the physical size of the opening. Then you got these straps that are kind of generic.
Yeah.
And that's what supports the weight of the tank and allows it to, be held in kind of a way that allows it to move a little bit. Obviously, tanks can be either good or bad. The worst thing you can do is put an old tank in a new build. Let me repeat that. If you really want to be stupid, put a old tank, which is dangerous and capable of setting fire anytime, into your brand new restored car.
Terrible idea.
Bad idea. There's brand new ones available. They're not even expensive, but you can spend huge amounts of time and money trying to clean out an old one, and it never works right. It's done.
Yeah.
It's like an old tire. Just throw it away. Okay.
Right.
Get a new one.
Right.
The economies have changed dramatically.
Yeah.
So it's a new tank. Comes from a company called Tanks. There are other vendors who sell their product, and undoubtedly there are other people who make reproduction tanks. So start out with that. Fits the opening. They'll give you a filler neck as a separate item. So for instance, in this car, this one fills in the trunk.
Okay.
We don't want to fool around with a gas door and a hose and 1,600 feet of God knows what kind of piping.
Yep.
The factory could do that because they did it over and over. We're not going to do that. We're going to make it easy. We're going to open the trunk and put the gas directly in the tank. Simple. Think simple. Okay. It's not even the filler hose is actually flexible coming up through the trunk floor.
Oh yeah.
So when I stick the handle in there from the gas station, I can actually move it over, put it in, and it'll pop back again.
There it is.
I'm not that smart, but
That
I
works.
thought that was pretty good. So now we can fill it easily. We just open the trunk and fill it. We don't have to go through the gas door and all that silliness.
Right.
Next up here, we're not going to go back to the old lines that were used because they get old. Even a new set of lines that you restored maybe 10 years ago, they're done. Get rid of them.
Really?
If you want to burn a car to the ground, let me repeat this. No more used old junk. Okay? I don't know what that spells, but it means it's actually stupid in a different language. Just don't do that. Get rid of all of it.
Okay.
And start over.
All right.
You'll spend 3 times the time fixing it as you will just replacing it.
All right. Now, did this tank come with this brass fitting here?
It did not.
Okay,
so
tell
what
me
we
about
did
that.
before we started work on it, we just drilled a hole and we TIG welded a female fitting for this brass plug. Why brass? Because brass never locks up. When you use metal to metal, there's a reaction that happens, and then the threads start locking up on you. Okay, this brass never does that. So that's why we use a brass plug.
Gotcha.
That's when the car is going to be mothballed. We're going to drain the gas tank down. We never put more than 4 or 5 gallons in the tank to start with. And then when we park the car and we know it's not going anywhere, we put a pan underneath it and we drain the absolute, all the gas, start the engine and run it till it stops. There's no fuel in that engine any longer. There's no fuel in the lines. There's no fuel in the tank.
Did your previous tank that you took out, did it have that?
No. The factory tanks rarely come with drains. They just didn't care. They didn't have alcohol, gas to concern themselves with. So the gas would sit in there for long periods of time without rotting.
Right.
When you put alcohol in fuel, you have to live with the prospect that it's going to get old and funky, and it doesn't have nearly as much octane. It's one of the very bad downsides of alcohol additives. Is yes, you maybe think you're doing something for the environment. That's nice, but it does nothing for the car. It means that the alcohol is going to rot in the tank when you're not using the car, which is very frequent with a lot of these cars. So you just switch to an unalcohol additive fuel like race gas. Yeah, it's expensive, but you're not going to use that much of it, and it's not going to rot in your tank.
Right.
It's right now regular gas is $4.50. It's $6.50, $7.
Right.
Do the math. Come on, you're going to spend $1,000 fixing it to save $30 worth of fuel costs. Come on.
Right.
This way God gave you a hit.
So is the gas tank the only issue with the fuel system?
No, it's just the beginning.
Oh, okay.
So we got all these lines, which of course now have corroded over time, and they're trying to close down with corrosion. So either that or just bypass them.
Yeah.
Even simpler. One of the cars we sent out here with 10 gallons, I said, what'd you give it 10 gallons? Well, I thought you'd want 10 gallons. I said, no, I want 3 gallons just to make it around and get back. And then, because I'm going to drain it out anyway.
Right.
Even race gas doesn't last forever.
Right.
So if you're going to park it over the winter, or the summer, in our case, you want to just hit this petcock, put a pan down there, take the gas out and drain it dry, and then run the engine until it quits.
Okay, very good.
And we're done. Now, moving up to the front,
Yeah.
they have fuel pumps. This is a straight 8.
Right.
Okay, and there are still thousands of these on the road, believe it or not. So there's still a lot of mechanical things that you can buy for a straight 8. Bob's Automobilia is one good source. There are 2 or 3 others that have had all this stuff forever. So you look for a company that handles kits for the fuel pumps that are alcohol resistant. Okay, even that, if you every great once in a while you'll have to put some alcohol gas in there. You don't want the fuel pump to get eaten up.
Okay.
And the little diaphragm in there is either sensitive to alcohol or it isn't. So a lot of the newer ones, especially lately, have come out just even in later models. They've started to put alcohol resistant diaphragms in it because everybody's facing the same problem. They just don't know it.
Right, right.
All right. So that fuel pump has got to be built to handle alcohol in the fuel. It's got to be insensitive to it. So those are available. Then the lines coming back have to be updated and new if possible.
Okay.
And you don't even have to take the old ones out. Just run a new one and use brake line.
Why
Brake line
brake
is
line?
really handy because you can build any length you want, and then you just ferrule the ends with an inexpensive tool,
Okay.
and now you can just fit them all together and make yourself a breakdown system at home without a whole lot of difficulty.
Interesting.
If you're going to go up into an area that's restricted, you're not going to run 20 feet of gas line.
Yeah.
You may have it in 3 pieces. You want that to be able to broke down in pieces.
Yes, I think we can see some of the gas.
Yeah. Now this
line.
earlier would have been a rubber line. Rubbers has a very limited service life.
Yeah.
And with alcohol, it's even less. So we're not going to use rubber.
Okay.
We're going to use rubber right going to it for flexibility.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
that
because of vibration and
because of
whatnot.
vibration, then we convert to the metal lines and then back to rubber when we go into the fuel pump.
Right. All right. So then what happened up front?
Well, again, we've got this alcohol resistant fuel pump, and then in a moment of clarity, I realized, wait a minute, what if the company that I bought it from, this is a straight 8 big series pump. It's a very unusual pump. I don't want to worry that guy's going to be in business in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought 2 of them.
Okay.
They don't die. They don't rot like a normal rubber would.
Right.
It's made actually out of very sophisticated material because it has to withstand the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it lives longer. So yes, why am I using it if I'm not putting the alcohol in? Because it just makes sense.
Okay.
So I had to wait like 6 weeks to get the fuel pump I wanted. If it was a small block Chevy or Ford, I could have got it overnight.
Yeah.
It's not a big
But
deal.
it's a Buick.
Yeah, that's right. And you're living in marginal land.
Yeah.
And you have to work with those limitations. So I buy a couple of everything when I'm buying it so that if something fails, I don't have to go looking for it. It's in the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
It's already there.
Yeah.
Why do you want to wait for disaster when you can just be prepared for it?
Yeah.
And so that way you keep these things on the road, and that way they get used and then they can become appreciated.
Yeah.
Instead of parked and saying, oh, that old thing, I'm tired of fooling with it. It's much safer to store a car without any gasoline.
Yeah.
So, I hit that drain, I dropped it, and I put it in another car I'm using.
Yeah.
Because race gas goes anywhere it wants.
Yeah,
It'll
it's
run
fine.
in any car. It's not too powerful or something. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's just a very high octane fuel. It's much like the fuel that was available in the 60s. Right out of the pump, Chevron had one called White Pump, and that was their high octane. I don't remember the exact 110 octane or something.
I see.
And so now you've got something that'll run in any car, including a high performance car.
Yeah.
Corvettes, any of the late models love it. They just get more horsepower.
Well, that's great.
It's just a higher octane.
All right. Well, then you're going to be happy in the fall with this
Well,
thing ready to go.
we'll be ready to roll, and we won't have it parked over there and saying, oh my God, what's wrong with it now?
Yeah.
Remember when we broke this out of its hibernation, the carburetors had a problem. We had to take them out and get them rebuilt.
Yeah.
When we started and ran it this time, again, because we're trying to drive it home,
Right.
then, we realized that the carburetors were fine. That's because we cycled the fuel
Been
through.
using it, yeah, okay.
We're using it even though it's been parked for 8 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And now that worked fine. And then we get in it and there's no brakes.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the brakes have been sitting around so long that they needed to be charged back up again
Okay.
and topped off. So once we get that in hand, Mark will take it out for a 2 or 3 block spin to make sure it's happy, and then it'll go home.
Okay. And for those who missed it, this beautiful car here, we have a video. I'll try to
Yes.
put a link in the description of this car being revived after, I don't know, 8 or 10 years where
Yeah,
it had been sitting.
it hadn't moved.
It
at
had
all.
layers and layers of dust, and hadn't, it was a little bit of a job getting everything right
Yeah.
again. But this is a fantastic car, and if
Yeah,
you
it's
can
one of the prettiest
appreciate-
cars I've ever seen.
and it's got a rumble seat, which is
Yes,
cool.
it does.
So-
And remember that this has been modernized just a little bit in the sense that it has a turbo 350 General Motors transmission behind the straight 8, original straight 8. We don't ever change this original motor. There's rarely a reason for that.
So it's still the old Fireball 8.
That's right. And those things make a lot of horsepower.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll make 300 or 400 horsepower without even,
Doesn't take that much to
not
do
that
it, huh?
difficult. They're big cubic inches, 321. They used them in drag racing. They used them in all kinds of racing, flat trackers, very powerful engines, very reliable. And if you have a good builder to build it, you got a really good engine.
Yeah.
It's natural to the car, obviously. Then we convert to the turbo 350, which is a more modern, simple automatic transmission. And in the back, to accommodate the fact that we don't have a torque tube any longer,
Yep.
we just put a Riviera rear end in it, so everything would be happy.
Okay.
And we wanted to keep the original wheels, so I checked the wheel patterns on the Rivieras and on the 37s, and they were the same. Buick
No
kept the
way.
same. Yeah, they kept them all those years.
Isn't that
So
amazing?
now their stock wheels bolt right up.
That's
So
fantastic.
I mean, you do a little research.
Yep.
And the Buick people are incredibly helpful. Like Bob's Automobile, a perfect example. They know just about everything you ever needed to know, and they have everything you ever needed.
Yeah.
And they won't BS you. They'll tell you the truth. Buick people tend to be like that. They're very, very straightforward people. They love their cars. The cars have been good to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had this car like 40 years.
That's amazing.
I wouldn't sell it. There's no way.
It's too good a car.
It's just too good a car. It's got a lot
Yeah.
of me in it, and it's got a lot of very sophisticated engineering was built into it.
Mhm.
Because Buick
Yeah.
was always the darling, because they were the guys who went on to run General Motors. When they were looking for a new president of General Motors, they would go to Buick first. And so when he got up there, the presidency, who's he going to take care of? Who is he gonna
Buick
take?
might get
His
the,
old buddies.
Yeah.
At Buick. So that's why a lot of that happened, and that's why to this day they remain a really good car.
That's really great.
Yep.
Well, thanks for giving us this update.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks.
maybe some people have learned some tricks for
Yeah, hopefully so.